Nashville Geek Life. As you know, I'm Cat of Diamonds. You've probably seen my face around here before. I am here with 3 other Nashville Geek Life creators, and if they could introduce themselves and what they do for the site, that would be great.
I'm Sean. You told us you were going to introduce us in an order, and then you just kind of went, well,
No, I told you the order
I wasn't
before
listening.
we recorded.
I'm Sean. I'm one of the featured writers for Nashville Geek Life. I do the Midnight Movie Series. I've done a couple of con wrap-ups and things like that. And that's pretty much it. The end.
Sharon?
Oh, I thought it was him next. Sorry.
See?
My name's Sharon
Sharon is
Sinar. I am a photographer. I cover most of the con coverage and cosplay.
And he's
And
currently
I'm currently a
fox.
red panda.
Oh, panda. And last up we have...
I'm David. I'm the one guy who wrote down the order we are introducing ourselves. I've mostly been doing covering different events and especially things with video games, Legos, and I don't know, a bit of everything.
Alright, well, I might be hosting this on the Nashville Geek Life YouTube Google Plus thingamajigger, but Sean has given us a little breakdown of how we want to break down our trip to DragonCon, which it was my first year at DragonCon, so I don't know about you guys.
Right. Yeah, so it was my second year at DragonCon, and like Kat just said, it was her first year. It was David's first year. Jerron,
It would be my second.
it was your second as well? Okay, that's what I thought. So I just wanted to just go over first impressions. So if we could get one of the 2 newbies to go first, Kat or David. Just tell us what you think about 70,000 nerds in 4.5 hotels. Kat.
Well, I don't know when you got down there, David. My group drove down and got there the night before, so we were there for Thursday night, so it's almost like 4.5 days when you get down there a day early, and half of our group got lucky enough to get a hotel in the Marriott, so I stayed in the Marriott amongst, I believe, the craziest of the crazy. I guess the Marriott Hotel is definitely synonymous with DragonCon as far as the after dark activities and the craziest of the crazy. I really enjoyed being in that hotel, so.
My group actually went down the first morning on that Friday. We were staying actually about 2 subway stops away, and actually I had a really pleasant time with the subway. I was worried that would be an issue, but it really wasn't so bad. We did have to plan out a little more ahead of time when we were going to things, though.
Okay, speaking for myself as my second year, last year I didn't stay at a host hotel. I stayed at the W, which is about 3 or 4 blocks away. So it was within walking distance, but I never wanted to walk home at night. So I took a cab every night, which was $10 a night. So it wasn't terrible, but I definitely didn't want to walk back by the end of the night. So it was definitely worth that $10. This year, I actually stayed at the Sheraton, which was the farthest of the 4 hosts, but it's only a block down. It was very nice staying that close without having to deal with the madness of the Marriott, the Hilton, or the Hyatt. As fun as they are, when it comes time to go up the elevator and go to your room, that could be a little bit of a trek, I'm sure. This year, I think I had a lot more fun this year than I did last year because I knew more of what to expect. I knew how to pace myself a little better. I knew that it wasn't, because there are so many people there, you can't expect to run into people that you've made plans with, because sometimes it can take 20 to 30 minutes just to get from one hotel to the next.
Yeah, I definitely learned that.
Yeah, this was my second year. I did not stay at the host hotel. Actually, I ended up staying 15 minutes away in a small motel, and I ended up lifting every night back, which actually only ran me about $10 to $15. I was about 15 minutes away. And considering leaving at 6 a.m. in the morning, though I did arrive there Thursday night before, got my badge in under 10 minutes.
Yeah, getting the badges was really easy. At least.
Oh, yeah.
Really well organized this year.
Yes, I was.
Or at least when I went.
With what Jaren just said about the badge, I got my badge on Thursday night. It was super easy. I did it around 9:30, so 30 minutes before they stopped. But someone who I was sharing the room with, a coworker of mine, last year we went. We were also roommates last year, and we went in the morning on Friday morning to get our badges, and we were in line for an hour and a half, 2 hours. But he went this year at roughly the same time, and was in and out within 20 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from my friends.
Yeah, we got there around midday on Friday, and we literally walked straight up to the tables and got our badges. There was no line at all.
I mean, yeah, they had like 20 booths set up. Minutes, walk in, ID or scan, hand you badge, walk out, grab a book on the way out.
Yep. Yeah, that's definitely. So it sounds in general like they were more organized with the badges and the registration this year, which is great. Okay, so the one that's on top right now on the screen, which is what all other viewers are looking at, is Jaren's red panda with its tongue sticking out straight at me.
It's set the random.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a much better experience for registration this year for me than it was last year. So that's all of our first impressions. Generally, one of the big things about DragonCon is the panels and the celebrities. I'm not typically much of a panel goer. I did actually go to a couple this year, but I know that David definitely went to more panels than I did. I don't know about Kat or Jerron, but if you guys want to go ahead and talk about those, David.
All right, so I'm definitely not one to be like starstruck or anything like that. I don't like to wait in line 2 or 3 hours just to shake someone's hand or get an autograph. So I personally didn't go to any of those. Some of the people in my group did go to the Mass Effect voice actors panel, and then we also stopped by the Hall of Fame to meet a few people. But I did go to a variety of panels. I think that in general, compared to the sign-in, the lines for the panels were not very organized, at least in my experience with them. We would have issues of people lining up in both directions away from the door, and then nobody knows which is the real line. We had some instances where people counted the line several times, and no one was ever informed that we were like 50 people beyond the cut of what would get in. And especially when I went to the Lego panel, there were a lot of very angry parents who brought their little kids and did not understand why they could not get into this tiny room for their panel. That said, though, the panels themselves were pretty good. I think my favorite were, if any of you went to the DragonCon academic panels, you can find them on Twitter, DC Academics. That was probably my favorite thing, just like analyzing different comic book characters and Tomb Raider and things like that.
Right.
Were there any favorite panels that y'all had, or anything?
Rocky Horror.
Rocky Horror?
I missed out on Rocky Horror.
The only panel I sat all the way through.
Now, was that a panel, or was that a live showing?
I will consider it as both.
I was gonna say, is it a shadow cast? Right? It's a shadow
Yeah.
cast.
Yeah, it was so interactive. This was actually my first time going to one, but
Rocky,
Yeah, it's
Rocky Horror is an experience.
Yeah, it's an experience.
That's really the best way to
I-
describe it, yeah.
I missed that one because at that time of night, I was just like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying in the Marriott amongst the
the
throng.
line wrapped around the building for blocks outside.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
sure.
that does not surprise me at all for Rocky Horror.
I learned very quickly about which panels to sacrifice because I did a lot on Friday, barely any on, or I would say none on Saturday. But I also did the Game of Thrones cosplay meetup on Saturday, and then changed into a costume to go for the YA fictional characters from books cosplay contest, and then that night went to the Yule Ball, and then I went to more panels on Saturday and none on, more panels on Sunday and then none on Monday. But I did a mix of celebrity panels and the YA tracks, the young adult fiction tracks, and then a bit of filmmaking mixed in there, just to mix it up.
Which ball?
The Yule Ball, so the
Harry Potter ball?
Yeah, Harry Potter Ball, hosted by the YA. Because I was in the YA cosplay contest, and that's where you do the announcements at the Yule Ball. So I went to that for a while, and on Friday morning, though, I went to True Blood to start off with because I was a very strong True Blood fan towards the beginning of the series, and then they just wrapped up, and so I wanted to kind of go see some of those actors before it stopped being a thing anymore, since the series finale was just recently, and I was a little bit frustrated because it started 30 minutes late, which I understand happens, and you want to give grace to the people who are really trying hard. At the same time, as a fan, and the fact that there's only 30 minutes in between each panel, and then there's 5 different hotels that have panels, and there's people who are queuing up, etc., etc. It's very tricksy to be an enthusiastic fan when your panel starts 30 minutes late, and then they can't really give you an extra 30 minutes without going into another panel. So I stayed for about 20 minutes and then hauled to the GLBT representation in young adult fiction, which was really good, and I just read one of the books that was recommended to me in that one, and it's probably one of the best books I've read in a while. And then I went to queue up for about an hour and a half. I believe we were in the queue for an hour and a half for BSG, A Visit to the Fleet, and that was really fun. And then I believe I went to queue up for Growing Up Potter with the ladies who played Luna Lovegood, which is the whole reason I did that, and then also Scarlet Bryn, who played Pansy Parkinson, who's a Slytherin. And those were my major... I did my major panel stuff on Friday, and then Saturday was all about cosplay, and I had a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And then Sunday I went to two more YA panels and a filmmaking panel. And the filmmaking panel was quality. I'm bummed out I missed out on more filmmaking panels because it seems like the people who they had speaking to filmmaking were just very smart people and very solid in giving advice and giving inspiration. So I was just very impressed by the lower known tracks. Like the YA track was amazing, and for at least the one panel of filmmaking I went to, I was very impressed.
Personally, I didn't do too much with the panels this year. I went to the Middle-earth Drinking Songs panel with David and his group. That was good. The sound system wasn't spectacular, so half of it was really awesome and half of it was garbled gibberish. But it was fun. I went to the Star Trek Dilithium Crystal Ball. That was okay. It wasn't nearly as active as some of the other balls I've seen, or the other parties or raves or whatever. I wanted to go to the Mystery Science Theater 3000 12-hour marathon, but I could never find out where it was. I couldn't find it in the list because it just... Apparently I'm just not very good with that. Because I tried to go last year, and I went at like 4 o'clock in the morning in the middle of one of their breaks, and I was too tired and left. So I wanted to see it this year, but I missed again. But in terms of actual panel going, I didn't do very much. Like David said, I'm also not one to really get starstruck, so I was definitely not going to wait in line for 2 hours to see Patrick Stewart as badly as I may have wanted to. But I did end up at the top floor of the Hilton, where there is a bar, and I was sitting at the bar with Sal Rubinek from Warehouse 13 and Tony Curran from Defiance, and who played Vincent Van Gogh on Doctor Who.
Nice.
So that was really the extent of my celebrity run-ins too. I didn't say anything to him, but I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm sitting right next to Vincent Van Gogh. That's amazing."
I know, and he texted me, "I'm at the bar with Vincent Van Gogh," and I just figured it was the really awesome cosplayer that I saw. And I was like, "Yeah, I totally saw him in the hallway." And the next day, he's like, "No, I meant the actor who in Doctor Who," and I was like, "What?"
But yeah, so there just weren't a lot of panels that caught my eye, so I just didn't have much of a reason to go to too many this year.
I did try to get into a cosplay panel, and it was ridiculously small room for how many people were there, and we were about 20 people away from the cutoff and we couldn't get in, and it was like working with special materials like Worbla and things like that. And it was a very, very popular panel. And yeah, so many people. It was unfortunate because some website was really impressed with my makeup for one of my cosplays and like stopped me and took forever. And then I think it was because I stopped to talk to them because I got cut off since we were like 20 people away from the cutoff line. But I would definitely speak to downloading the app. I spent about 2 hours with the app before I even went to DragonCon, and then went and added and deleted things the day of those panels to kind of just prioritize what I was actually interested in the moment, and that kind of gave me a really good chance to go to as many things as I wanted to without stressing out that much. And then being able to see if the people on the panels that I missed out on were speaking on anything else, because I could go in and look at them specifically to see what they were doing. And I definitely, it might zap your battery a little bit, but I just carried around a charger with me and found outlets, random places to charge my phone throughout the day.
Yeah. I had the app. I just didn't spend a ton of time looking for panels, and like I said, the majority of them that I saw didn't interest me that much. So I'd put stuff on the schedule just in the case of, it's 3 o'clock and this panel's starting, it's right over there, I guess I'll go. But that just never happened.
I downloaded the app too. It was great to have a map on me, because last year I actually missed one of the whole hotels, apparently. So it was nice knowing where that was.
But yeah, so, Jaron, you write for NGL about cosplay and cosplay events. You also run Euphoria Cosplay Studios. Mm-hmm. So, what did you see that impressed you, cosplay-wise, at DragonCon? Other than everything.
What did I not see that impressed? That's come to actually nothing. Oh, wow. I mean, I was everywhere during that. I even flew in a special cosplay guest for the event from California, but the whole entire event, I mean, cosplay-wise, it's just the con to go to for cosplay. I mean, you got something, big project you've been working on, you want to show it off, it's hands down the convention to debut a costume. I mean, you got photographers running everywhere. This year was a bit of a letdown, though, to me, and I know a lot of other people, since the 10th floor was closed off to photographers. I noticed a lot of crowding down on the other floors, and a lot of people kind of claiming spaces and chasing other people off. So I hope to see a designated photography area again, or maybe the cosplay lounge moved somewhere else. It was great that Riot put that on, and I'm glad to see a cosplay lounge where the cosplayers could get away from the photographers. So, but cosplay-wise is amazing, but I think it needs to go back to the way it was a designated photography area. Keep down crowding.
Or splitting it. Like, this side is for people who want to take pictures, and this side is for people who want to just relax.
Well, there's some photographers that don't know the boundaries. So, I mean, zoom lens.
Yeah.
Or they need to put up a wall. Because cosplayers
well,
don't
they did have that up, but it was they did have one up, but it was a VIP thing.
Right.
So I know that they have the materials, but I that was the only place that I could really get a good one of my makeup for my Capital Couture, and so we just snuck it. And I asked the other person who was in that little divot, and I was like, "Will you tell me if they take a picture of me really quick?" So we did it anyways, and then left. So, whoops.
Yeah, I definitely saw a lot more, like Jerron said, photographers with a lot more equipment just kind of wandering around down on the main floors of the Marriott than I did last year, which generally, might cause a little more traffic jams, a little more, but I don't think it caused as much of a traffic and crowding issue as I was anticipating it to cause. But I think a dedicated photography area is still kind of a must.
It would definitely be nice to set up again somewhere like the year before. This year I didn't really focus on it as much as I did because this was more of a celebration year for me. Last year, though, I was up on the 10th floor and I was everywhere, and the cosplayers knew where to go if they wanted to get their photo taken without having to shell out $75 to $200 for a official one.
Right. Yeah, I almost I stood outside of at least one X-Men shoot in a costume that I debuted this year. My male Jubilee or Jubroli or Dudebilee. And it was during the early on Friday, so it was just blazingly hot, and I was wearing kind of a wool not wool, but a heavier yellow jacket, and I was just like, no, I'm not waiting around to do this stuff. I'm just gonna go. But yeah, in terms of cosplay, the stuff that always impresses me the most are the more obscure things that other people won't recognize. And my favorites, my three favorites this year. Well, technically, I guess it would be 5 favorites this year because 2 of them were groups of 2. One was the little kid from Flight of the Navigator. He had on a NASA hat and he had the spaceship thing coming off of his shoulder. It was voiced. It's just a 1980s Disney kids adventure film, and it was very simple, but I really liked it. And then there was, I think it was a couple that were Baseball Bat Guy and Hammer Girl from the Raid 2 Barandal, which is not the kind of movie that I would have ever expected to see anybody cosplay from. It's a Taiwanese action film, and they're 2 of the primary themed villains from the movie. It's just a flat-out, just crazy action, like bloody, violent action film, and they're 2 of the fighters, and they fight with a baseball bat and hammers. It's exactly what it sounds like. And then what I thought was really great were Valentine and Earl from Tremors, which is a great movie. Tons of people. I did a midnight movie write-up for it last year, but they were walking around with like big prop graboids, and they had the pipe bombs tied to the ropes that they would swing around. It was I stopped them at least once to take their picture and once the next night just to be like, that's just awesome. I just have to tell you guys, I took your picture yesterday, and I just love that.
It was my first time going to a cosplay meetup, like the Game of Thrones one, and one of my fellow groups, she did Daenerys as well. I did Daenerys with the Horseheart from season 1, and she just did Dothraki regular Daenerys from season 1 of Game of Thrones, and it tripled, I want to say, in size this year. As it had been in the 5th floor of the Hilton Hotel in years past, and we all got up there around 2 and looked around, and it was just massive. Nobody could hear anything, and we went outside and took over an empty stairwell, and we just couldn't even fit. It just spilled out over onto the sides, and it was very, very cool. I had never been in one before, and I would totally do it again. It was a lot of fun. And then it was my first time doing a cosplay contest, and I probably won't do it again, but I definitely know what it's like now. And yeah, you have to kind of be prepared to give up, 2 hours of your time to get judged. And then I went to the Yule Ball, which I had a lot of fun at the Yule Ball, but then I had to wait an hour and a half for them to do like the cosplay parade and do the prizes, so that was another 2 hours. So it's definitely something that I can speak to as far as giving advice to other people, but I probably personally won't do it again. As much as I love the photography meetups, I probably won't enter a costume contest again, unless I'm super impressed with something that I do in the distant future.
We actually spent some time looking for some of the cosplay meetups, but I think that since it was our first year, we were a little unsuccessful in finding them in a timely manner. We would always be like running toward one and then finding out that we just missed it or something like that. This was my first year dressing as a somewhat obscure character. One of my cosplays was Kraven the Hunter from Spider-Man, and it was really funny that I'm not used to people my age not recognizing what I'm doing, but I actually had a lot of guys twice my age, like older men, come up to me and being like, "Oh, I loved your character back in the 70s." And I just thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I actually, like I said earlier, I was with a roommate, a coworker who I went with down there, but I like to typically just kind of walk around on my own, and I was wearing my new Jubilee costume, and it was perfectly fine, but I felt much more comfortable once I randomly ran into David and his group, who are all other Marvel characters, including Kitty Pryde and Kraven the Hunter and Black Panther and Black Cat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were all cat-themed.
I didn't know that. That makes sense.
We also went to the
Awesome.
hero villain ball, which when we were y'all were talking about the professional photos, that's where we got our professional photo made. They actually had a $30 photo shoot for charity, so 100% of the profits went to, I believe, the Atlanta Food Bank.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
That's awesome.
It's really good.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. The ball itself was a bit of a letdown, though. Apparently it was a lot better last year when some of my friends had went, but they felt like it got downgraded to a smaller ball area. It was basically, it was the same as any of the raves you would go to at GMX or MTAC or things like that.
Yeah, I think...
Okay, gotcha.
Generally, I think I heard that kind of stuff was toned down a little bit this year. Just from what I saw and what I've heard from a couple of people say, I've heard similar stories to what David just said. And that's not really a bad thing. It keeps it from being overcrowded and safety hazards and whatnot. The one I went to, the Star Trek ball, was not huge. But I did go to a small room show, which was actually because I ran into someone else that I knew randomly while I was walking around by myself. Actually, local artist Professor Shy Guy was putting on a show on Saturday night. It was Professor Shy Guy and Ali Spagnola, which is actually where I saw the Flight of the Navigator guy. But they put on a show in one of the I think was the podcasting room in the Hilton, and that was pretty packed for being a little room. But if you haven't seen Professor Shy Guy perform yet, he really kind of goes all out, and he doesn't. He makes sure that you have a good time when you're watching. But apparently, I also heard that James Gunn, director of Guardians of the Galaxy, showed up to that show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he was pretty excited about that. But yeah, generally. Go ahead.
I could be wrong. I believe Professor Shy Guy is booked for GMX.
I'm
or at least
not
attending.
100% sure.
Don't remember. I thought I saw that's what one of his Nashville shows was on his list. But again, don't quote me. Or maybe I can say it and it will become to be.
We can only hope.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can only hope so. That was the first time I ever saw him perform or do anything like that. But yeah, so generally, DragonCon, good experience. I had a much better time this year than I did last year. And I had a great time last year. But I think having a year's worth of experience and knowing, just learning the little things, like don't go to the Sky Bridge, walk downstairs, and walk across the street. It takes you half the amount of time. Little things like that.
I didn't have very many problems with the Sky Bridges.
Something happened this year. The Sky Bridge was not crowded last year. I'm not for sure what happened there.
Yeah,
the photo shoots.
Oh, right.
Many people taking pictures there, maybe because there weren't so many photo areas, and then just traffic jam.
Yeah, we were around that area, taking over the areas by the pools. So yeah, Skybridge.
Yeah, I think in general, I don't think it was nearly as...
Whoops.
Even though there were as many people as last year, it didn't feel as crowded to me as it did last year. Which is saying something because to new people, it's definitely crowded. It's
yeah.
But it felt more open. I think it was just maybe it was more of I was never in a rush to get anywhere. I was allowing myself more time to relax and just enjoy what was going on. Because one of my favorite things to do is just stand over the railing over the escalators in the Marriott and just watch people.
Do you mind if I hijack the topic real quick?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Do you have any tips for people looking to go to DragonCon?
I think Kat might.
Maybe, just a bit. I did make a whole video about going to conventions, but speaking to DragonCon, if it is going to be your first ever convention ever, go with people who've been there before. Try to go with a group of friends who have experience going, because while it was it's maybe my 4th or 5th or 6th con ever. It was my first DragonCon, and I went with a group of 7 people, 5 of which had already been there for a few years, or at least 1 or 2 years before. And so while we didn't do a lot of things together, very much for the weekend, I was able to get their advice on things, and as far as my initial getting into the downtown area and knowing where to go and what's around where, I could just follow them until I got my bearings, and then I could adventure off on my own. So it was really nice to have people who already kind of knew the ropes, and until I got the ropes, I could just hang out with them and then, go forth and be my own DragonCon adventurer after that. That's my biggest tip, is to go with people who've already done it if you're new. Especially if it's your first ever con. Especially if it's that.
Yes. In addition to what Kat just said about... I just heard some weird feedback. Okay. What Kat just said about getting your bearings, make one of the first things you do, at least memorize the layout a little bit. Know which hotel is which. Know which way you need to go to the other hotels. Figure out what floor the sky bridges are on. figure out.
Memorize the bathroom locations.
Yes, it just that sort of thing just can cut down on time so much. I actually have a friend who lives in Atlanta, who I was trying to explain to him how to get to the America's Mart, which is where the vendor room was, and I was just like, you just walk straight through this hotel, straight through to the next one, and you turn left. And he was just like, well, which hotel's the next one? I was like, you live here. You live like 5 minutes away. How do you not know these things? I was like, I've been here twice in the last year for 3 days. But yeah, definitely try and get your bearings as quickly as you can, because it's extremely helpful. Something else is if you're trying to meet up with people, or meet someone who's not a part of your group, or just meet back up with your group of friends. Don't let that be a burden to what you're trying to do. I've had last year was a little more, because I actually went with another group of people who was also their first year, and if you're looking to meet up with them or do something with them, plan it more than 30 minutes in advance.
Yeah.
It's and phone
I had
reception.
that learning curve on Saturday.
Yeah, phone reception there is terrible. Don't expect to be able to get messages from someone. That's another reason to plan a little bit more in advance. Just try and, if you're going to split apart, don't say, I'll contact you later. Say, we'll be back here at 4. We'll be over there at 5. Don't say, oh, well, I'll contact you or call you at 4 o'clock. That won't work. It just won't.
And I think that leads into my biggest thing, like this being my first year, the schedule app was amazing for just being able to go on there. It's like, alright, I had 2 friends who were more local that I wanted to meet up with. I was able to look at their schedules, compare the 2 of them, and be like, okay, we both have a 2-hour break in this time slot, and a day ahead of time I could plan out that we're having lunch at this restaurant at this time. And it was so much easier because messages were very sporadic, no matter what we were using to send messages. And the app also has not just a map of all the floors of all the hotels, but it had a map showing the like city blocks. And I probably pulled that up every single time I went anywhere just to double check. I have a tendency to get turned around and be walking in the opposite direction I'm supposed to be going, and that was really helpful. And speaking to the issue about keeping your phone charged, I brought a mobile charging station. I was able to recharge my phone, my girlfriend's phone, and recharge one of the 3DS's. And it was really helpful just being able to recharge, because your battery will run through so fast.
You gotta have those street passes.
Well, yeah. What else am I going to do when I'm sitting in line for an hour?
Yeah. My tips, I mean, agreed, the battery pack was the biggest thing I'm so glad I got this year. For those of you looking to come, one thing I'm going to say is parking will run you a good bit. I think it's $30 a day in some of the closer parking garages. I lifted each day, so I still spent about $30, and the parking resets at like 4 a.m. So if you stay past 4 a.m., it's going to cost you $60 to leave. So I lifted each day. Food.
Yeah, I was going to say...
It's connected to the food court. I mean, the food court, there are tons of great choices. You had a Firehouse Subs, Yumi's Sushi, you had a Dairy Queen. One thing that not many people know about is the Con Suite, which is in one of the hotels each year, and they actually feed you. They have a fully functioning soda fountain with multiple different drinks. They are cooking 24/7. There's never nothing out there that you would not want to eat.
Yeah, this is news.
Sorry,
this is the
negative.
greatest tip.
Yeah, sorry, bad habit. You go in there one day and it's peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You come back again 30 minutes later and it's Chef Boyardee. I mean, it's...
I didn't know about this going.
Yeah, I
was
mean,
gonna say, remember to eat. That was going to be my tip. Remember to eat, because there was definitely
I mean, you could go
There's,
in there
like,
with a
staying in
giant cup and fill it up from the soda fountain and walk out. They don't care. It's there to make sure you eat, you stay hydrated, and you don't pass out. If you have something you really want to go to, be in line at least 40 minutes early to guarantee yourself getting in. If it's a really, really big event, an hour to an hour and a half early. Just, I can't think of anything else. I mean,
There was a numbers game. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it was like sleep 4 to 5 hours a night, take
Oh.
at least one shower, eat at least 2 meals, and things like that.
and remember the DragonCon food pyramid: sugar, booze, and caffeine.
I was actually going to say I was very impressed with the waters at the hotels. They didn't seem to run out, and they were only $2, which, coming from, like, trying to buy a $5 small bottle of water to an $8 small bottle of water at, like, a concert or a venue like that, I was really impressed with it. I mean, even though it's inflated a lot for a bottle of water, $2 was not terrible. And
There was-
they
Yeah,
didn't
that's really
seem
good.
to run out.
Right.
There's
water.
free water at the panels.
Yeah, there's free water out of those tanks.
Yeah.
But if you were just running around in costume and, like, taking pictures of people and getting dehydrated in general, like,
And there's
it
also,
was,
if you're in cosplay, there's always the cosplay suite.
again,
Free bottle
I
of
don't know
water.
about that until, like, halfway through.
Yeah, I'm aware it's a
So
thing. I've never
remember-
been there.
Remember to go with people who know the con so they can tell you these things.
Yes. Exactly. It all goes back around.
Alright, I think this is a really good roundtable. Thank you guys
Yeah.
for, postponing one night so that we could figure out the technology. And well, if you guys like this as viewers of Nashville Geek Life video, let us know. Tweet us, Facebook us, or leave comments on the website if you like this. And all of our stuff will be updated probably in the next 24 hours if you'd like to contact us for anything that we talked about today.